is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Follow him at Twitter at Jerome_Corsi. He formerly has done a great job for, I guess, 12 years or so with WorldNet Daily. He's a, three-time #1 New York Times bestselling author. He basically pioneered, along with Lou Dobbs and others, I'd give great credit, along with InfoWars and Drudge, but really Corsi and Dobbs more than anybody, exposing NAFTA, GATT, TPP globalism. And so much of what he's worked for, we're now seeing take place. So I'm really honored to have him as the lead man to be our Washington bureau chief and to set this up in Washington, D.C. How successful it is up to him, myself, you, the listeners, and, of course, all of you out there that support the broadcast by visiting InfoWarsStore.com. So, Dr. Corsi, it's great to have you here with your maiden voyage. I mean, it really isn't maiden. You've been coming on the show for about 12, 13 years, but it's great to have you.
Well, Alex, it's a real honor to join InfoWars, to join Alex Jones and your whole group. You've done great reporting over the years. I'm honored now to be an official part of InfoWars, and I'm very excited to get to Washington to establish press credentials at the White House and to create the Washington News Bureau for InfoWars. I this morning called and got the information from the White House press office. I've now filed the email I was requested to for press credentials, all my birth certificate, I have to have a birth certificate, of course, Barack Obama does. And, all the information, driver's licenses, Social Security numbers, and I've asked for passes for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week. So hopefully, as soon as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, Infowars.com is going to be in the press briefings at the White House as White House accredited press.
Well, I want you to be able to continue, but everybody knows I'm not at a loss for words. The media really likes to imply that we're the fake news, they're the real news, but the president himself keeps saying, no, you're the fake news, and exposing him. We're the press that helped get the president elected, along with Breitbart and Drudge and WorldNet Daily and others, and Daily Caller does a great job too. We're all in this together, battling the Glenn Becks and other Judas goats, of the world. And we've even, seen the attempted coup at Fox to bring in a bunch of leftist globalism fail. And so we're seeing the ascension of, patriots there like Tucker Carlson. So a lot of exciting things. But, I was in the Facebook mentions and just mentioned that I ran into some senior people that had worked in the campaign and are working for Trump. They're like, oh, we love Paul Watson. When's he coming? Are you going to have a bureau? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, I'm sure. I just took it as a foregone conclusion that would happen. I'm not going to quote what the president's told me, but I'm just going to leave it at that. And then hundreds of articles saying Jones caught lying. He doesn't have credentials. They haven't been issued yet. They haven't issued any. It's starting next week, as you know. So they take everything we do and twist it to make it sound like we're outcast, we're failures, it's so ridiculous. InfoWars and your work and all of it is seminal and changing the world. And we're not bragging. We're explaining why MSM demonizes us and belittles us, hoping that our listeners and viewers think they're small as well when they have changed the world, when what we're doing is now taking over the planet. I mean, the globalists admit they're in full panic, and they admit in internal papers that have been leaked that they want to shut down Drudge, InfoWars by name. But then, Dr. Corsi, we don't have any power and we're a big joke. The truth is we're changing the world.
Well, and Alex, I had press credentials in 2012. I was traveling press with Romney's campaign on his airplane for 3 weeks at the end of the campaign. White House press office today didn't think there would be any problem in InfoWars and Alex Jones and me getting press credentials. It was a very cordial conversation. I expect to be cleared perhaps tomorrow in order to be able to know I can get credentials when I show up at the White House on Monday. Now, the real fake news, and my first article with InfoWars today, pointing out that Google is now trying to worm its way into the Trump White House. I mean, this is a huge organization, Google, that has been a solid backer of the Clintons and Democratic leftist causes. In fact, Eric Schmidt, the founder of Google, actually was one of the top campaign advisors for Hillary Clinton. He considered himself the top outside advisor. And I'm going to put together an article for tomorrow showing that the father of fake news is none other than this guy Brock down running, Media Matters, and his co-conspirator in the fake news is Google, which is now trying to block organizations. They won't even say which organizations they're blocking.
And let's be clear, they had almost daily meetings 3 times a week, officially with Obama, and then daily meetings with Hillary and Podesta, crafting what search terms were allowed, controlling the entire narrative beyond communist Chinese-style censorship. And now they're trying to weasel into the White House like they're these big friends. Now, Google has a lot of great services and some good people. I'm not saying I hate the whole organization. You know, we've done a lot of big things through their platforms like YouTube. But the issue here is this is a group that literally, as you said, was the high command of Hillary's operation. And so Trump needs to be absolutely aware of these people. If this isn't folks letting in the Trojan horse, I don't know what is.
Well, and also, Google has all of these capabilities of taking clicks and gaining information, profiling, micro-profiling, perhaps the whole population, anybody using a Google search engine. And what Schmidt and Google were doing for Hillary was taking this data on us as internet users.
So when they go to your door, they have a computer with everything about you. And let's be clear, they have intelligence files on everyone, including the president.
Yes, that's right. And these intelligence files are being used by the Democrats and Hillary to take what Obama did and his data managing techniques. And this is very powerful. When these people show up at your door or they're targeting you to vote, they know what you like, what subscriptions you have to magazines, what you watch on TV, what you click on the internet. They've got all this data, and Google offered, and we see it in the WikiLeaks released emails from Podesta, where Eric Schmidt was offering to provide all this data to Hillary and to create a data file.
And that is literally a billion times what Nixon got impeached for. I mean, this is just, or was about to be impeached for. I mean, explain how big a deal this is. Openly, publicly, and it's in the WikiLeaks, saying, we're going to give you intelligence files on everybody.
Yeah, it completely violates any privacy idea. I mean, it means anything you do on the internet now, if you do it through Google, is going to be subject to being provided to Democratic operatives so you can be profiled. Now, we know the Democrats, when they were in charge of the federal government, they were taking this information, they were giving it to the IRS. You had a Department of Justice that was completely politicized. CIA under John Brennan, totally politicized. This data that Google has is enormously powerful if it can be used either to get voters for Hillary to the polls or punish and prevent those that the data, the Google data, shows the Democratic operatives are voters that are going to be of supporting Trump or supporting conservative causes. This is really fake news is a made-up term, which is the code words for keeping conservative views off the internet, keeping Alex Jones out of the public view. That's what fake news is all about. That's where Google, that's where Brock, that's where the left is headed. And make no mistake about it, their final aim is to say we're fake news and InfoWars does not have a right to exist.
Dr. Corsi, you're on target as usual, and that's exactly what they were planning to do when Hillary got in, because they believed she was going to win because they were basically skewing the poll numbers. They tried to steal a bunch of states. We now know that, but they failed, and so now they're in panic mode. From your research and talking to folks in the Beltway and others, what are your biggest concerns? Because I don't want to get too confident here. That's why I've committed to basically spend every bit of capital we've got and, mortgage the house down the road if I have to really fund us being in D.C., New York, and other areas to be there exposing fake news when the MSM, crawls out of their hole. Because we have to be on the field as real media. We have to step up to the plate and basically just by being there, move these people out of the way.
Well, that's my whole commitment to create a Washington bureau for you, Alex, for InfoWars, because it's going to take, an army of our journalists who are trained to present the truth, to research, because you've got, just watch any White House press briefing, even the few that Trump has held, and you've got, the front row is still the comfortable mainstream media. CNN ensconced there.
Yeah, we ought to get Bannon and others and Spicer. They should create maybe a lottery where it literally is a deal with numbers in it, and it scrambles, and then people reach in and get what they get, and that's where you sit.
And get a bigger room. Get a room where we can really set up and have a number of people in this audience who are not just the selected Washington correspondents who are all of a like ideological leftist agenda. We're all set out to attack everything Donald Trump does. What we've got to do is establish a Washington bureau. We've got reporters capable of digging down the facts and countering the mainstream media lies.
Sure, and here's an example. Imagine Breitbart, who is now there, or InfoWars, or if Drudge had a correspondent. Imagine we would ask the right questions like, you've been criticized with non-existing proof of being funded by the Russians, but what about Saudi Arabia in this news article? Prince such and such bragging that 1/5 of Hillary's funding comes from them. Or what about the Communist Chinese in the People's Daily openly bragging that Trump will not be elected because they're putting funds in the campaign? Why isn't the president and you defending yourselves with the fact that the proof is Hillary was foreign finance, not you?
Well, and also, what about these protesters who obviously we just saw from the report in front of the Capitol, are not, these are paid protesters. These are, what Kramer was doing, what we had exposed.
AstroTurf.
Keefe, these are AstroTurf protests. These are thugs. I was at the inaugural with my wife, and these protesters are there, foul-mouthed, in your face, wanting to fight, crazy, recruited professional thugs who probably don't have a clue what they're out there for.
Well, I'm glad you were able to get in. We had to go to 3 different entrances, and I saw them beating women up on purpose, and the police ordered to do nothing. And we have it on video. It was just so insane. And then you'd go on the news, and they'd said Alex Jones was kicked out of the inauguration and arrested, showing footage of the police protecting me in Cleveland. So they didn't even get the right city.
The woman right in front of my wife was attacked by one of the protesters. Fortunately, the police grabbed the guy and protected her. But, I mean, we were walking in all kinds of different ways to get into the inaugural balls at the convention center. I mean, it took us over 2 hours just with the protesters. And yet people did persist and get in. But these protesters were violent. They should have all been arrested by the police. Police are standing there watching them. They're not sweeping the streets. They're not clearing them. We've got to realize that these are not your 1960s.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got a right to go protest. I do it all the time. Do it in the area. Don't block the street. Don't attack anybody. But no, I mean, I've been arrested twice for doing nothing demonstrating, but because I was being loud. Okay, fine. The point is that they literally were attacking people in front of me. I couldn't believe it.
Well, and Alex, I've got the information. I'll be developing an article here very quickly that Russia is actually supporting and funding these terrorists who are out as protesters to disrupt Trump and to disrupt the inauguration and these other events. This is Russia. The whole idea that Russia was wanting to elect Trump is nonsense. Russia was funding, through the Workers of the World and through other communist groups, the recruiting of these crazies to be protesting Donald Trump and disrupting rallies. Russia's whole goal was to create chaos. And
now, Doc, this is bombshell, because I've known you 15 years. I've never seen you make anything up. The whole narrative we've been shown is, we have WikiLeaks, that Hillary was doing this and Soros was doing this. So why would Russia be doing it as well? Is it a double game, or when will we see the proof of this? I mean, I'm not denying that you got this information, but this would really get so sophisticated it makes my head spin.
I'll start writing it up for tomorrow. You'll have it tonight.
Doc, let's flesh out this Russia thing. And listen, you've broken so many big stories over the year. You got the secret documents on NAFTA and GATT and TPP. And, I mean, you've really been a game changer. And I know there are leftist foundations in Russia that the State Department sends money to that then come back and were against Trump. And there was also Russian groups that were for Ukraine being overthrown, but they were really globalist groups. And I know you've not been a enemy of Russia or anything. You've supported Trump, wanting to have peace and go after jihadis. But I really respect you when you say you've got the investigative reports and the witnesses and people to prove that some type of Russian funding was actually trying to disrupt Trump rallies. The question is, who would be behind it in Russia? So break down a little bit of a prelude or an hors d'oeuvre of what's coming tomorrow.
Well, I will, and I also want to say that Roger Stone's book, and I just posted a review on Amazon. This is the definitive book of the 2016 campaign, and it's written by a master. I mean, there's hardly anyone more experienced who knows Donald Trump better, more a political operative than Roger Stone. If you want to understand what happened, why Trump won and why Hillary lost, how Hillary lost, You've got to read. You must read.
This should be required reading in all political science bureaus around the world. Instead, they're just trying to ignore why Trump won.
It's got information in it. And Roger, really, I think this is Roger's best book. He really kind of pours out his soul on this one and at his deepest strategies. So you can understand that, Trump's victory did not just happen. It was, Alec, and you're discussed very extensively in the book. Alex Jones is focused on as one of the key reasons why Donald Trump won. Your audience, what Richard Nixon used to call the silent majority, and Donald Trump knows it himself. He's acknowledged it to you personally, Alex, and we both know that.
Well, it's an amazing time to be alive. Let's talk about the Russians and then what you expect the globalists to do to try to stop Trump.
Well, first of all, you've got to understand that Putin, it plays all sides, and Russia is always for causing disorder, confusion, chaos. Russia's benefited from this. It's part of the whole, fundamentally communist strategy for destabilizing a society in preparation for overturning the government. And Russia can say all it wants that it's not communist, but Putin's still KGB. Now, I think Trump can deal with Putin, but this is going to be a matter of power politics. It's not, I've looked Putin in the eye and I see his soul. Forget about that. Putin's a nation state. He's got strong interests, and we have to be a nation state with strong interests. We have to define it maturely with Putin, who's going to do what. And, when there's legitimate evidence, and there is, Workers of the World, other organizations that are communist funded, operatives being sent back to Russia for training, brought back here to the United States, funding coming out of Hillary's campaign through the Democratic National Party into these groups, these operatives, operating below the surface to hire thugs. And we saw them. I mean, I saw them firsthand with my wife. We both can attest to it. These are not 60s protesters at the inaugural. These are constant. Every other word is a foul word. Throwing stones, breaking windows. These are anarchists. They're nuts. Some of them are mentally ill, charging in to attack people who are simply trying to go to the gala, to the inaugural gala. This is not organized political protests of Martin Luther King variety. This is organized chaos and disruption.
Sure, but I mean, going back to my point, Russia legitimately is trying to build up its families, bringing back Christianity. I don't lionize Putin, but he has made a lot of free market reforms. He has been exposing globalism and promoting nation states, resisting that. I understand most governments play a double game as well. I just think in general, the globalist anger at Russia, I think is legitimate. I mean, Russia more and more is blocking globalism.
Well, I mean, there's certain things that Russia does and Putin does that can be to the advantage of ending globalism and advancing the cause of freedom. Don't get me wrong, but it's like our government does all kinds of things that if Americans knew what our government was involved in would never approve of. So too, Putin plays both sides of the game, and Trump is going to have to be sophisticated, and he is. I mean, Trump knows that everybody's riding for themselves in international politics, and Trump is going to have to deal with Russia and Putin as a nation state that has ambitions in Ukraine, the Crimea, Eastern Europe, its sphere of influence, and is going to act to destabilize other countries. Rules are going to have to be set. We're going to have to expose when Russia is inappropriately working with the Soros left to fund disruptive protests. I mean, it's also important because here Roger Stone is being attacked as being the architect, behind WikiLeaks, or get Trump, as the elected president. The truth is Russia did everything it could to attack the Trump campaign and funded these groups who were in the streets protesting, causing riots that were to block.
Well, I mean, I want to see it because all I'm saying is Putin is outlawing Soros's groups and rolling up his organizations in Russia. So, I mean, I can believe that the way bureaucracy works, you could have leftists in the Russian system that were going for Hillary. I mean, we know that. I just don't see it as if... But I was also told by some other smart folks, they said, listen, Putin on the surface says he likes Trump and hopes if Trump gets elected, they can work together. But overall, they want to work with Hillary because they have her penetrated. They have her emails, and they know that Hillary's, people got $35 million for the uranium. She met twice secretly with Putin. Kissinger is an advisor to Putin. So there is some triple sophisticated game going on.
And Hillary, this I've wrote about extensively. I mean, Hillary, it was being paid, as was Podesta, through money laundering connections and Russian banks. They were being paid millions of dollars for transferring U.S. technology to Russia under this, failed reset.
Sure.
program.
So Trump needs to bring that out and burn the Democrats, because here's the deal. I'm not a vindictive person. They're not giving up. They've got TV shows and movies and Vice calling for his death. The New York Times saying he needs to be killed. It's a daily drumbeat. And so we're under attack. We haven't won yet, and they're doing illegal things. And I think Trump needs to take the gloves off. I mean, I know he wants to stabilize the economy first, show people prosperity, but they might kill him by the time he gets that done.
And these protests, what the left is engaging in right now, is classic Soviet propaganda to agitate, to create disruption. If you take a look and see these protesters in the street through the lens of KGB-funded type protesters through communist organizations operating in the United States, as well as Soros, you see the far left is just buying into what would be called agitprop.
Well, sure, agitation, propaganda, but larger than that, I think it's more of a wind-up toy. Like the old Soviet Union has pretty much fallen apart, and then they're kind of more of a Russian Federation, and a new Russian empire is what they're trying to go back to. So I agree they want to rebuild and expand. No one's debating that. The issue is they haven't expanded much yet. And then meanwhile, sure, they're following some old Soviet diagram and template and operating system, but I don't really see that being directed out of Russia.
Well, you'll see the evidence starting tomorrow. It's a big story, and you'll see it starting tomorrow. But the point is, we can deal with Russia. For instance, we can cooperate with Russia and Turkey and Egypt in the Middle East to defeat ISIS. It doesn't mean we're suddenly going to become, best friends with Putin. We can cooperate when the interests match. We've got to constantly understand that when the interests don't match, there's going to be conflict. And
absolutely. But expanding on that, why won't Trump, when the Saudi Arabians and the communist Chinese admittedly funded Hillary, and then there's no evidence of a Russian connection to Trump, that's been documented, PP Gate, all of it totally made up, pulled out of Hillary's rear end. I mean, I'm sorry, that's where it comes from, or I guess John McCain's. Why won't he then bring that up? Why won't he go after him? He's got them.
Well, there's about to be a new day here in a whole new Attorney General and a whole new office of the Attorney General, Department of Justice, and you're going to have a situation in which the Department of Justice is going to be empowered to investigate a lot of things. Hillary Clinton did not get a pardon. The Clinton Foundation is still in operation.
And I agree. What does it signify that Obama didn't give that to her?
Well, Obama would have had to make the pardon public. He can't do a private pardon that is not known. If he did, I think it would be illegitimate. The pardon has to be issued officially.
Let's shift gears then. Let's shift gears to the Supreme Court that we're going to be hearing about tonight, the new pick, and then other things Trump faces after the break. But first, just as an American, as a patriot, somebody been defending this country for 50-something years, State Department, anti-terrorism, you name it, what do you think of Trump? Because he's almost too good to be true for me. It's so ridiculous how he's doing everything he said he would so decisively. I look at what he does. It's all so researched and so well done. It's almost uncanny.
Well, I've known Trump for 40 years, watched him in New York. I virtually lived in the plaza for about 2 or 3 years, and I was working in financial services. Trump is the real deal. I said this from the very beginning.
You said this 2 years ago on my show.
I did. Trump is the real deal. I mean, he is going to deliver. He's going to deliver far more than anybody expects him to deliver. He's going to keep the campaign promises. He's going to, rip into this left like the left has never seen it. You think Trump cares, if the left goes insane because he had a limited travel ban on 7 countries for a short period of time? Trump doesn't care if they all go nuts. He's going to continue the ban. He's within his legal rights to do it. And Trump is happy to expose the left as being completely off the wall and insane and lying and distorting what he really did. Trump trapped the left into this. Well, he's going to do it continuously. Supreme Court nomination is going to be one, I think, that all patriots who love America and who want the Constitution restored are going to be able to embrace and champion. And you're going to see Schumer and the others in Congress, no matter who the nomination is, launching up to protest and obstruct. The American people, I think, are going to get very sick and tired of seeing the Democrats just trying to block Trump to go back to a failed agenda of Obama and Clinton.
All right, you're really a banking expert. That's what you really did until you were a journalist 20 years ago. I want to get into the world economy. Can Trump stave off a world financial collapse that Dent and Ron Paul and others believe is basically overdue? They both say Trump's doing great stuff, but they think it's a day late, a dollar short. Report, Hillary allies think Obama, not Putin, cost her the election. Where do you think Hillary goes? What's her legacy? She looks sicker than ever. I mean, I don't think the left and the globalists themselves realize how much trouble they're in. I mean, I see the Davos Forum with the communist Chinese president coming and saying, don't worry, I'll prop you up, and lecturing us, even in the Wall Street Journal, how we should censor the alt-right. I mean, it seems like they don't realize how much trouble they're in, though.
Well, I think that's right, Alex. I think you're going to see step by step, Donald Trump is going to take on the left. He's going to take on Hillary Clinton. She's not out of the woods yet. She's not been pardoned. Foundation is still operating. Every day that foundation stays open, the Clintons are guilty of inurement, benefiting out of that foundation personally. They're criminal charges that should be brought, and they shouldn't be excused. You asked about the financial issue. I think you're going to see also Trump taking on Janet Yellen at the Fed. You know, for the entire Obama administration, the Fed has kept interest rates at zero. We've had a fake non-growth, but it hasn't been the depression it ought to have been under Obama. The job growth has been non-existent because it's all been part-time jobs. You have millions and millions of more people who just dropped out of the labor force, and another $10 trillion in debt. I mean, if the Fed had not been a willing accomplice, Obama could not have pulled off this, crime on future generations.
Sure, and now the Fed isn't going to issue QE3 because Trump's in. So what effect does that have? Can Trump pull us out of this?
Yeah, I think the key element, the first and most important, is growth. I mean, with economic growth, there's a lot we can do that you never saw explored by Obama because the growth was anemic. All you had with Obama was regulations.
Well, it was selective. It was only to the elites.
Well, and that's right. You saw the very top getting exceedingly wealthy. So, Eric Schmidt now is $11 billion, and, that's what his net worth is. And the average person is wondering about how they're going to make their car payments and their mortgage payments, credit card payments. Most people are living paycheck to paycheck in the United States, and, got the elite in Hollywood and the Eric Schmidts and Google are having these, Obama permitted and Hillary permitted fortunes to be achieved by having monopolies that should not be existing. I mean, Google's power, I think I'm going to continue to write on this Google theme. It also involves regulatory decisions that were made in Google's favor, control of data. You're going to see Google being exposed for what it is, which is a democratic data operation.
And I dare Google to try to start blocking InfoWars as they've done on Chrome and other areas, then they had to pull back because we're exposing this. We have a right as citizens to not be manipulated and to not have you dominate and control the press and the White House. I'm not out to get Google. Google has been out to get us, and I'm sorry, their monopoly stops when it touches my First Amendment.
Well, and also it's a process of defending ourselves. I mean, if Hillary had won, you can bet the FCC, which was in the process.
Oh, they admitted they were going to start shutting down free press. I mean, Obama signed that law. Come back and do 5 more minutes, Doctor, and we'll let you go. We have another guest coming up, but I want to talk about that. Obama signed that law 2 weeks before the election, or 2 weeks before Trump got in, saying federalize all media. What is Trump going to do about that? Of this financial collapse they've opened up. And he said, yeah, if we grow our way out, and Trump is working around the clock to do that. But in closing, a lot of big stories daily coming at Infowars.com. We're going to be getting some more folks working under you and, covering a lot of stuff as it breaks, but also commentary on the media, exposing fake news. And we need you to do that, Doc. Your great commentary on air, but also articles, just pointing out where they're deceiving, what they're doing, what the special interests are up to. But in closing, in the 3 minutes we've got left. Just what is it like for you, let's say fighting 10 years ago against this, to now see they've capitulated? Globalism is admitted, world government's admitted, the authoritarianism of it is admitted, and so they really have no moral argument now. It's very strange.
Well, going back to when I was first on your show, maybe 13, 14 years ago, I mean, it goes back. We've been working together for years. We were talking about the Security and Prosperity Partnership in North America, creating a North American Union. And, we exposed these things. And today, it's openly clear that the globalists had a plan to not only destroy the United States, but to do this trans-Pacific and transatlantic partnership for global government. These are fundamental crises that between liberty and the forces of globalism, forces of government control, statism, that have been going on, fighting probably since human beings have existed, since governments have existed, but it's never been more critical. And the debate is about the internet, that's why I'm so honored to be with you. It's about live streaming. It's about what we're doing right now. Millions of people watching, on the internet, live time. And what we're going to do is we'll have an apprentice program for journalists in DC. We're going to recruit young journalists. We're going to be out in the field recording what's going on. It's going to be very exciting because we've got to show people what's actually
That's right.
happening.
I mean, you could easily retire. I could sit back at this point. But this is epic history. We've got to do it or the enemy's going to win. But we have a real shot now of winning. We were fighting 20 years ago not knowing if we could ever even turn the corner, but just out of sheer will. Now it's ours to lose, I think.
I have no intention of retiring. I mean, it's right now, the internet is the cutting edge, the front line of the battle. Live streaming, what we're doing right here, this is the front line. Because Hillary Clinton, if she'd been elected, would have had the FCC with fake news, all of this, not mantra.
The NDAA, Obama signed it, putting the CIA over the FCC.
What the left realizes, and they're complete panic over it, is that the mainstream media, NBC, CBS, they're all dead. Nobody's going to watch them in 20 years. Maybe not New York Times, dead. Hollywood, dead. These are all, bypassed ideas and technologies. You don't need a New York Times. But Obama would establish a ministry of truth, and he would have censorship over what is permitted to be said in America. You've already got the mainstream media acting like
that's right, and we grabbed victory from the jaws of defeat. Thank you so much, Doc. We'll talk to you soon. Great to have you with InfoWars.
I'm really honored and thrilled to be with you. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.